All right. I want to do a response to a man who doesn't know I even exist. Who doesn't give a fuck about me. And whose ideas, however, though, have been very influential and impactful upon my mind. He is one of my intellectual heroes, Sam Harris. Yeah? I discovered him accidentally whilst just also accidentally discovering Christopher Hitchens, who were all a part of the atheist. Well, they're all Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, Daniel Dennett, and Richard Dawkins are all known as the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, the atheist movement. Anyway, found him. I found him very Sam Harris. I'm talking now. I found him very calm, spookily calm, kind of like a mystic yogi kind of calm, but in a suit. He was very calm, very eloquent, very well thought out, incredibly intelligent, and very moral. And also the thing I liked about him is, out of those four, he didn't deny the existence of a spiritual component of the human condition, nor did he attach any supernatural concept to the idea of spirituality either. He kind of engaged with it in an intellectual, experiential manner. He was continues to be very impactful for me. All of this being said, a true, intellectually honest fan, if you're really a fan, you'll be able to, over a period of time, be able to identify the patterns in somebody's thinking. And over time, you also then start to identify holes. Nobody's perfect, not even a intellectual wordsmith such as Sam. Everyone's up to some kind of critique, but critique also, I think Sam would welcome critique if given in the right way and if you truly try to understand his perspectives. All of this being said, I feel like I have done that. I mean, 7 years or something, I think I've been consuming his information, and I spent hours of my life consuming what he's saying and trying to understand him. And so if anyone's situated to be able to critique him, I think, as one of his loyal fans, I'm one of them. And where I want to begin is not even the most consequential, but his idea of free will. See, look, there's a common thread with all of my critiques of Sam, actually, regardless of the given subject, whether it's religion or spiritualism or free will or anything. There's a common thread, and that it's Sam doesn't seem to understand we have stupid people in the world. Stupid people who still need to exist, who exist by finding simple means of survival. See, if you apply that one simple critique across his views of religion, his views of free will, and his views of any other given topic, you'll see that Sam always comes from a position of it, from an intellectual philosopher. And he seems to do the most common smart guy error of assuming that the people he's talking to are equally as smart or equally capable of comprehending what he's comprehending. I really don't think that's the case. Whether people are incapable of comprehending what he's saying or just are unwilling, that's a conversation. That's a valid conversation to have. But it still doesn't change that people's minds are not being changed despite his arguments. Now let's go, like I said, to free will. So my critique with him in free will is he seems to assume that free will doesn't exist. I think it does. Not in the degree to what a religious person may say, which is that we've been bestowed with free will and people are either inherently good or inherently bad or this, that, and the other. No, I absolutely agree with him in terms of there is a deterministic factor to it, but we have even if it's an illusion, a capacity for free will, and it's a varying degree of capacity to free will. I think, to put it as simple as I can, the majority of the difference between people's ability of free will is again connected into not just their intelligence, but people's willingness to change, people's willingness to try and expand their understanding of the world and themselves and others. Some people are just stuck in their way. They've created a story, a worldview that makes them feel safe, makes them feel comfortable, makes them feel whatever. They've just created a worldview which, if you're coming and trying to attack, even if you're saying the reason I'm attacking it is because I think by reconsidering your worldview you could find a better one, people still feel like they're going to lose something, you know? And when it comes to religion, some people have nothing in the world, no economic means, they're stuck in a tyrannical fucking government kind of situation. Their family ties are dependent on them following a certain belief system and blah, blah, blah. And so to come to this person and say, well, rationality says that your line of thinking is flawed and therefore you should reconsider, it's not gonna be bought by many people. My concept is, if you're taking something away from somebody, give them something. And when we're talking about a story, which you attach your sense of identity to, your well-being, your happiness is somewhat predicated on this story. If people like Sam Harris were to come around and say, right, I'm taking it away from you because it's bullshit, it's flawed, it's full of dogma, it's blah, 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 without giving a story of equal value to replace it. Now, of course, the argument is going to be that, well, there is philosophy, there is art, there is science, there is a beautiful world within a secular world that doesn't need religion and stuff. But this comes back to me, and I think we have a spiritual component of us, which requires some consolement of the concept of death and the majesty of human beings and its connection to nature, and a feeling that it's more than merely organical organisms experiencing one another. You feel more at ease when you're in like a forest or something than depending on which forest. You might be very scared of the co-inhabitants of that forest, animals and shit, tigers and stuff. But generally speaking, greenery, forestry, trees and shit can be very consoling to the soul. And it's like, we need to kind of consider that there's something that is offered from an environment like that isn't offered by a concrete jungle, such as in a city. And that's just one example of many to imply that we have a spiritual side of us. And the secular, atheistic worldview doesn't appropriately address that point, I think. And especially, like I say, to people who don't necessarily have that much of intelligence, a simple story such as you are God's children, God created you, blah, blah, blah. This is a story that you can visualize. You don't necessarily need the highest intellect to understand. There's different levels of religion. It is very complicated, but it can also exist within the human mind in a very simplistic way as well. And therefore, it scales, Unlike the idea of science, you have to be quite intelligent to comprehend certain concepts within science and stuff. So Sam doesn't take these into consideration, doesn't seem to. And for a lot of the time, that's why I think people interpret him and his ideas as heartless, because it does seem to overlook this point that I'm making. Anyway, yeah, look, I'm a massive fan of Sam's, and I think his heart's absolutely always, for the most part, in the right place. I just think he overlooks some very important aspects of the human psyche when talking about us as a collective.